When we hear the word recession, we usually picture a catastrophic failure. We imagine the global economic engine, which normally hums along at full speed, suddenly seizing up, shuddering, and grinding to a violent halt. But if we look at the actual data, a recession has a strict mathematical definition. It is simply a period of declining economic activity marked by three main indicators: a drop in gross domestic product, or GDP, which is the total monetary value of all goods and services produced in a country, an increase in unemployment, and a measurable drop in how much money consumers are spending. These declining indicators signal a systemic cooling period. The economy is performing a structural recalibration to offset the imbalances that built up during the previous expansion. This is a classic macroeconomic wave chart mapping the economic cycle. If you track historical data, economies inherently move in continuous, repeating waves through four distinct phases: expansion, peak, contraction, and trough. Every contraction is born directly from the expansion that preceded it. To understand why an economy eventually falls, we have to look closely at the hidden pressures that build up while it is growing. Here on the upward slope is the expansion phase. Rising growth and employment drive an active economy. This momentum is fueled by a massive surge in demand, consumers buying and businesses investing. Eventually, the economy hits capacity at the peak, where demand severely outpaces supply. When too many dollars chase too few goods, the inescapable mathematical result is inflation. Prices across the entire economy rise rapidly. This overheating pushes you. High prices, strained supply lines, and inflated assets create a top-heavy structure. At the absolute peak of its financial success, an entire economy is highly vulnerable to any sudden disruption. So, what actually provides the final push that shatters this fragile peak? Often, it is a deliberate policy choice. Central banks will step in to suppress out-of-control inflation by tightening monetary policy, raising interest rates, which instantly makes borrowing money much more expensive. Sometimes the trigger is systemic. Sudden bank failures or severe credit crunches can lock up the financial system, freezing the cash that businesses need to operate. Other times, it is an unpredictable global shock. Pandemics, sudden wars, or sweeping supply chain disruptions can physically halt international commerce overnight. A central bank rate hike looks nothing like an energy shortage or a global pandemic. Yet, they all strike the exact same vulnerability. They cause a sudden, severe destruction of economic demand. As that demand evaporates, the economy crosses over the peak and slides directly into the contraction phase. Without buyers, businesses are left holding excess inventory. Their immediate survival reflex is to aggressively reduce production and slash their internal investments. This chart diagrams the unemployment cycle. Falling demand forces reduced production, which inevitably means cutting jobs. These job losses eliminate income and trigger psychological fear. Panicked consumers stop spending, and this lost income feeds straight back into a further reduction of overall demand. Once this downward financial and psychological momentum begins, the freefall becomes self-sustaining. The contraction loop spins on its own. The loop eventually pulls the economy down to the trough. This is the absolute lowest point of the contraction phase, where natural, unassisted economic activity has stalled completely. To break the cycle, governments rely on two main rescue mechanisms. This left diagram shows monetary policy. Central banks aggressively lower interest rates to make borrowing cheap again, injecting a massive outward wave of liquidity, which is simply readily available cash, into the financial system. The second mechanism is fiscal policy. Governments step in to artificially stimulate demand by utilizing direct public spending and heavily cutting tax rates. Neither of these actions happens in a vacuum. The coordinated goal is to manually inject new demand back into the system, forcefully wedging a block into the gears of that downward contraction loop. As borrowing gets cheaper and government dollars flow into infrastructure and businesses, that renewed demand successfully sparks the next expansion phase. The cycle begins anew. Job losses and evaporated savings cause real, painful damage. But if we pull back to view the entire timeline, the contraction itself is an inevitable, mathematically necessary reset within the life cycle of a healthy global economy.